I love being the goalie, just following my dad's footsteps, and we all have a role to play, especially being the goalie is the last line of defense, and it's your job and responsibility to keep the puck out, and I just love that intensity it brings along with it. My name is Mark Connors. I was born and raised in Halifax, Nova Scotia. My earliest memory is when my dad took me to the rink when I was about 5 or 6. I couldn't skate. I just kept on falling down, but I just kept on getting right back up, and I just fell in love with the sport right there. In November 2021, I was at an away tournament, and these 5 spectators in the crowd were calling me the N-word in the first period. And I was called the N-word over and over again. My bench, myself, we told the referees, but they said they couldn't do anything unless they heard it at the time. They should have addressed it. They should have dealt with it, but instead they just kind of let this continue on. And the next day, a few teammates and I were in the gym, and we were just coming up. And in the hallway there was a couple boys and a parent from the team that we played the night before. They just threw chirps at us that night, and the first response I got back was, "Shut up, you effing N-word." Another response was, "Don't you know this is a white man sport?" And the parent that was with them told me, "Shut up, you effing monkey." I just felt like I was alone and no one had my back.
I think for me, one of the first things that I noticed listening to that video was that the derogatory terms weren't just coming from the athletes, it was actually coming from adults as well. And I think part of the responsibility that we have as adults is to be able to educate the youth. So obviously through this panel and through watching vignettes such as that one, that's an opportunity. But I think what really struck me was the fact that clearly this is coming from a wide range of audiences. And so I really feel that folks in leadership positions, especially when we're looking at us and the positions that we all hold, it is that form of continued education. And then also making sure that we are holding people accountable to that action as well, because I really felt as though that was multiple times that he experienced some derogatory remarks. It wasn't just the one time. So why was it able to continue on for such a period of time while he was away on this trip? So from what I'm hearing, there's been some positive changes, and it really starts with him using and amplifying his voice. So credit to him for sharing that story.
Credit to him for sharing that story, and I feel that sense of pride. I'm so happy that you use that word, because that's really what we see when we see him standing up and being vulnerable, and really laying out the truth of what occurred. And I'm wondering, when we love a sport, sometimes we supersede some of the discomfort that might happen and might occur. And I'm wondering, I'm gonna go to you, Brady, because I know that you grew up loving football. And could you share your story of football from all angles of your experience? What do you look for in an organization that is ready to go and do that really difficult work of inclusion?
Well, if you really look at doing the work, you have to look at, is there a need for it? And you have to ask yourself those hard questions, and especially particular people in the roles that we have. Is there a vacancy period? Is there a high turnover rate? And you have to ask yourself that as the manager of it, or the leader of that organization, and that starts with you. You have to then hold yourself accountable, and maybe that's where it starts. In terms of finding love in sport, I was very fortunate enough that my First Nation community was in the city limits of Fredericton, New Brunswick, and if it was the other way where we were isolated, the Capital Area Minor Football Association wouldn't come and run camps or have organized sports. And so my community was very lucky because it allowed for people like Josh Jacoby and Allison Brooks, who both played quarterback at the university level, to go and experience those things and then come back and talk with me. And it just showed me that it can be done. But even still, the discrimination and inequity in sport, that's something we never talked about. And you kind of get told that it is there, but I was just dealt, we don't talk about those things, and it was a tough thing to unlearn. But it hindered me as I transferred from high school to university, out of that community, and I have no security. I have no one there. And institutions need to be wary of that because there's many different people that live here. And if your organization is geared to only supporting one type of athlete or one type of student, you have to then look and be like, well, why is that? And it's because a lot of the structures we have and the way we operate in Canada is everything's imported. You have to acknowledge that. That's not the way we're supposed, that's not the way of the land. And it's incorporating, that piece of respect and love and honesty and honest with yourself, but incorporating other views, because as a coach or as a department, don't you want to be the best? And that doesn't mean you only keep doing the same thing. You have to evolve, and it's an essential part of our human nature and society.